In the winter of 1386, a convicted child killer was marched to the gallows in the Normandy region of France. The murderer was dressed in a new waistcoat and a crisp white shirt, paraded past a jeering crowd, and hanged by the neck until dead. The killer was a pig. That execution in France was an entirely standard legal procedure for the time. Between the years 1400 and 1700, European courts regularly put animals on trial for committing crimes. The justice system maintained two distinct legal tracks for these non-human defendants. If a domesticated animal, like a cow or a pig, committed a violent act, they were tried in secular courts. But if wild vermin, like a swarm of locusts or a mischief of rats, destroyed the local crops, they were hauled into ecclesiastical church courts. These courts granted the animals full legal rights. They were issued formal summonses, assigned defense attorneys, and given thorough trials. In one famous case from 1510, a lawyer successfully defended a group of rats by using a legal loophole, arguing his clients couldn't safely appear in court because the town's cats would eat them. Behind the absurdity of reading a subpoena to a rat is a very human psychological coping mechanism. When an infant was mauled or a harvest was wiped out, village life felt chaotic and truly terrifying. Holding a trial allowed the community to project moral agency onto nature, turning a random tragedy into a crime that could be punished, restoring a sense of order. In the 21st century, animals have moved from the defendant's chair to the evidence locker. They provide the forensic data needed to catch the real killers. During the Enlightenment, investigators stopped looking at nature through the lens of superstition and started observing it through the lens of science. They realized that insects operate by strict, predictable biological rules. This realization birthed forensic entomology, the study of how insects interact with human remains. Because specific species of flies lay eggs at exact intervals, and their larvae grow at predictable rates, forensic scientists can read an insect's life cycle like a biological clock to establish an exact time of death. By the 1980s, insects were solving murders in completely novel ways. In a 1985 Texas homicide case, investigators searching a suspect noticed a tiny, peculiar detail: a single severed grasshopper leg caught in the cuff of his pants. This animated diagram illustrates exactly what forensic scientists found. They took that severed leg from the suspect and matched it against a mangled, legless grasshopper body recovered directly from the murder victim's clothing. The geometry of the tear fit perfectly into the fractured body. That microscopic piece of insect collateral damage proved the suspect was standing exactly where the victim died. It secured a conviction for murder. The Texas case demonstrated that nature does not require a voice to testify. The physical presence of trace biology provides undeniable testimony on its own. What you are looking at here is a scientist analyzing DNA electrophoresis results. This technique separates fragments of DNA by size, creating the distinct banded patterns you see on the screen. It allows scientists to create a unique genetic fingerprint. And by the 1990s, forensic labs started using this exact process to map the DNA of non-human animals. In 1994, Canadian police investigating the murder of a mother of 5 found a blood-stained jacket discarded near the crime scene. The jacket was covered in white cat hair. The victim's estranged boyfriend had a history of violence, and he owned a white cat named Snowball. Investigators pioneered a new method of animal DNA testing, specifically for this case, definitively matching the shed hairs on the bloody jacket to Snowball's unique genetic code. 4 years later, genetic testing solved a violent home invasion in Seattle. Attackers kicked down a door and murdered a young couple. During the chaos, the couple's pit bull lab puppy, Chief, tried to defend his owners and was killed in the struggle. When police eventually apprehended 2 suspects, they found bloodstains on their clothing. Prosecutors sequenced the DNA from those stains and matched it perfectly to Chief. Using the puppy's blood, the state secured murder convictions for both men. It was the first time dog DNA was successfully used in a United States murder trial. Household pets are biological recording devices. Simply by living in a home, they shed hairs onto attackers' coats or leave blood on a weapon, depositing the exact genetic evidence required to link a perpetrator to a crime. Passive shed DNA is highly effective evidence, but animals also possess instincts, and their physical, active reactions to violence can trap a killer. Take a look at this white cockatoo. In 2001, a cockatoo named Larry Bird watched an intruder break into his home and attack his owner. Acting on pure instinct, the bird flew directly at the attacker, fighting back with its beak and claws. Larry Bird died defending his owner, but his vicious defense drew blood from the killer's forehead. As the wounded attacker fled, he wiped his face and touched a light switch, leaving a perfect, uncontaminated sample of his own DNA right at the crime scene. This is an African gray parrot. These birds possess high-level cognitive abilities and are famous for their precise vocal mimicry. In 2015, an African gray named Bud was sitting in his cage when his owner was murdered. Weeks after the crime, Bud began reciting the victim's frantic final plea, mirroring the exact tone and voice of the man as he begged for his life. The bird's instinct to mimic its environment inadvertently captured the horrific final moments of the attack, preserving an audio recording of a murder long after the victim was silenced. Cases like Bud's force an interesting legal dilemma. If a parrot can perfectly recite a murder, including the exact inflection of the victim's voice, can that bird legally be considered an eyewitness in a court of law? The strict rules of evidence provide a clear answer. For testimony to be admissible, a witness must be sworn in, and a defense attorney must have the opportunity to cross-examine them. You cannot cross-examine a parrot. This shift reflects a transition from the moral judgment of beasts to the objective analysis of their physical presence. We rely on the science of their biology to find the truth. The most eloquent, damning testimony in the courtroom today often comes from witnesses who can never speak a single human word.